All right, so we've seen how services are defined, and we've seen how we can use services in our code. The next logical step is to figure out how to define services ourselves. And really, the only missing part that we haven't done yet is creating a class to encapsulate our service. So that's what we're going to do in this next step. Let's jump to the resource pack directory, and let's copy over the 14th step, which is called blinddatingservice.php, adding our own service. And we'll go over to our source directory inside of our blind date module and paste it in. And we'll rename it blinddatingservice.php. Now let's open this up and take a look at what it looks like. It's really simple. There's not a lot to it. First of all, we have these comments, and it includes this contains and then the name of the full namespace and class name. Now, one of the ways that this is useful is that we can use grep or some other file searching tool to find a full namespace just by searching the text. We don't need any fancy IDE in order to be able to search class names and figure out what the full namespace for a class is. Next, we define what namespace we're in. And again, whenever we're inside of a module creating code for a module, the namespace is going to be Drupal / and then the name of the module. And then we define our class, and we're going to call it blind dating service. We could really call this anything we want. There's no specific convention here that we need to follow. And then within this, we can add however many methods would be useful for this particular service. Now, in thinking of a service as just a class with a set of methods, and the service can have multiple methods that you call, those methods are kind of utilities of the service. In this particular service, or class, we only have one method, one thing we can do here. Just like when we looked at the UUID service, it only had one method to generate the UUID. In this service, we only have one method, and the goal of it is to get the tagline. So this might be a service that we'd use for different pages to pull that tagline in, maybe to caption photos or something like that. And all this does is return some text that's been run through the T function or translate function here. Now before, when we were inside of a controller class, we could use this and then the arrow and a T to indicate the method of the this variable. But in places where we don't have access to that, we can still use the T function straight up like this. Okay, so it should be pretty clear what this class does. And now the next step is registering it as a service. And we've seen how this is done before. We use a services.yml file. So let's go back to our resource pack directory. And what we're going to do is take the 15th step called blinddate.services.yml, registering our own service, and we'll copy this. And we'll jump over to our module directory. I'm going to bump up to the base directory here. And pretty much any YML file is going to exist in the base directory of the module. So we'll paste it right in the blind date folder, and then we're going to rename it blinddate.services.yml. And let's open it up and take a look. So the structure here should be very familiar to you by now. We have the services main key here, and within this we have definitions of the different services that our module is going to provide. In this case, we just have one, and we can name it whatever we'd like, but the convention is to use the module name, a dot, and then a unique name for the service. We're just using the same name that we used for the class name, which is typically what we'd end up doing, since that class name should be a good descriptor anyway. And then we define the class that this service aligns with, which is going to be Drupal, blind date, blind dating service. All right, so once we rebuild our dependency injection container by clearing our caches, what we'll find is that we now have this service available to us. We can access it with the Drupal : service method call, just like we've seen in our previous calls.